Welcome back, part 4 of the Resident Evil film series, Audiocast. We'll be talking about possibly my favorite of this little franchise. This film is possibly filled with the utmost amount of entertaining schlock that this series could ever put into a film. It has Matrix references, it has Dawn of the Dead references, it has scenes cut directly from Resident Evil 5, the game. It's got so much stuff that you could possibly want crammed into an entertaining little schlocky experience. And that's what Resident Evil Afterlife is to me. It's not good by any means. It is not superior to the first film. It might be superior to the third film. Definitely, possibly, most definitely superior to the third film. But it is still quite dumb. How dumb is it? Well, we open with another backstory narration from our hero, Alice, as she tells everybody that the T-virus took over the world and everybody died, yada 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 yada. So, Claire Redfield, we last left off with her and her not character, and Kmart and her not character, and the rest of the survivors who you could possibly care less about, escaping from the Mojave Desert to fly north to Alaska, where Alice thinks there is a safety place, because she found it in a brochure in a bathroom next to a corpse. Because of course she did. And of course she thinks it's safe in Alaska, because that notebook said so, and that guy, he might be dead, but he looks trustworthy. He has a trustworthy face. Look at those eyeless sockets and that toothless grin. Of course he looks trustworthy. So, Claire Redfield and company fly north for the winter. And Alice, after dealing with Dr. Isaacs, decides it's time to take on Wesker at the Tokyo Hive facility. In Tokyo, we have one of the most interesting openings. This entire film has a very nice soundtrack. I just want to let you know that this soundtrack is amazing. If there's one thing that this film franchise, outside of maybe the second one and the sixth one, if there's one thing that the first, third, fourth, and fifth did, it was good music, good background music. I enjoyed it. And this opening credits scene in the rain in Tokyo with a bunch of people walking about, we see this one girl in slow motion with the rain slowly falling upon her. Everybody else has umbrellas, but she doesn't. She doesn't look well. And as the camera zooms in upon her and upon the people staring at her in confusion and wondering why she's just standing there in the rain, she suddenly turns into a zombie and attacks a nearby person. And this is where how the outbreak in Tokyo begins. You might ask yourself why this one girl turns into a zombie here in the middle of the rain, in the middle of Shibuya's most busiest walkway. And you might never find an answer to that question. I can understand how it might spread throughout America. I can understand how it might spread throughout the world if people, like, take airplanes and an infected person gets infected on the airplane, they land, and then he turns into a zombie, and then it breaks out from there. But if there's one thing the game's exemplified, it's that despite a virus being so viral, you can contain it, and they have been able to contain it, and society still moved on years, decades later. Leon, 20 years later, is still alive. America, 20 years later, is still around. A little bit worse for wear, but they were able to contain these things. They were minor breakouts in small regions. You go and you contain the incident, and then you quarantine the incident, and people move on. But this way, movies got a movie, and suddenly the world gets infected as soon as Raccoon City blows up, because of course it does. Of course it does. But this scene is really cool, and I really liked it, so as dumb as it is, it's still very cool to look at. And the music is amazing. It really exemplifies what you're looking at. The slow motion, rain, all of it is just really well done. And then we fast forward to post-apocalyptic Tokyo, which just basically looks like Tokyo at night with nobody on the roads. Which probably does look odd, because Tokyo is never asleep at night. It's always awake. But, yeah. We have some sentries on the road sniping zombies because, I don't know, they're bored. And then Alice and her clones go to Tokyo and they kill the sentries. And Wesker, who is played by a different actor now, is going like, what's going on? He's always so calm and composed. He never takes his sunglasses off. I love this Wesker, man. I love the Wesker in Resident Evil Afterlife. I love this Wesker. He is amazing. Possibly because Resident Evil 5 came out a couple years before this, and Paul W.S. Anderson goes like, wow, that's a cool game, and wow, Wesker sounds really cool. I'm gonna put that type of Wesker in this movie. And he finally decides to remember that Chris Redfield exists, but we'll get to that later. Oh, that's a fun one. We'll get to that in a moment. So, we have the Alice and her clones attacking the hive, the Tokyo hive, and they all have the psychic telekinetic powers, because of course all the clones have the psychic telekinetic powers. And apparently Alice brings every single clone ever to this facility. She doesn't think to leave a few sentries behind to continue the cloning process and all that stuff at the Mojave Hive. She doesn't think to do that. She doesn't think to, manufacture the antibodies in her body and take those T-virus or the cellular level crap and deliver it to Claire Redfield and the survivors and be like, hey, we can inoculate you guys and you could bond with the T-virus at the cellular level too. But no, they decide that they don't want to do that. Alice is just going to bring every single clone that has ever been made into this Tokyo hive. And it looks really cool. Everything looks really cool. They're dressed all in black, and there's a lot of slow motion cam. Everything looks like it was ripped right out of a Matrix movie. And I'm going to tell you that I love the Matrix films. The Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolution are bad, but they're very entertaining schlock. The highway scene in Reloaded is amazing. The final battle versus Mr. Anderson in Revolution was dumb and very entertaining. That's the type of entertaining Resident Evil Afterlife in the opening segment was. It was really cool. All of these Alice clones are just giving Wesker a very bad day. They're giving him a very, very bad day, and he decides it's time to escape. So Wesker escapes through a helicopter, and he purges the hive, because all hives have a self-destruct sequence, and he self-destructs the hive, killing all of the Alice clones inside. But he misses one. This must be the real Alice in the helicopter. And she sneaks up on Wesker, and Wesker stabs her with some sort of pure cure to the T-virus. He's like, I just got rid of all of your powers. And then Alice is like, if you're looking at me, who's flying the plane? And Wesker turns around and it's all cartoonist because because the plane is heading right for a fucking mountain. And he raises for the helicopter and boom, everybody crashes into the mountain. And Alice survives for some miracle, odd reason. And then over time, she makes her way back to America, back to the western seaboard. And she's flying to Alaska now to meet up with Claire Redfield and others because apparently she's not too smart. Clearly, what I would have done had I survived that crash would be to head straight to the Mojave Hive, tell the AI what happened and be like, I need to get reinfected with the virus to get all my superpowers, and we need to get more clones. We gotta find Wesker. We gotta attack him. Because, of course, you have a hive fully functional with some damaged equipment, but apparently you're still able to make clones. You're still able to activate clones. You're still able to do all that crap. You got an AI, all that stuff. You had a whole facility ready to go, and you just decided to scrap that entire plot line. Because this is what these Resident Evil films do. They carry some of the plot lines into the sequel, and they completely discard most of the rest. This is how they make sequels. This is how he's able to make sequels. By discarding useful plot points that were set up in the previous film. Because if he had those in the next film, you could have wrapped everything up. But we have to keep going. So, instead of purging the hive in Raccoon City in the first one, we close it. And then the dumb idiots open it, and we have the apocalypse happening in Raccoon City and all that crap. And then we nuke the city, but for some odd reason, it still gets out. And now we have Resident Evil Extinction. And for some reason, Abigail Ashford and her antibodies and her antivirus and all of that stuff and all of her knowledge on possibly how to make and manufacture a cure and all that stuff, and Jill Valentine, we discard all of those, and we only take the two dudes, Carlos Oliveira and LJ, and we have them band together with Claire Redfield for some odd reason, and then that movie happens. And then we set up this awesome Alice gets control of the Mojave Hive, and she's ready to attack Albert Wesker in Tokyo, and we open with that segment, and then it's like the Mojave Hive doesn't exist anymore. It's like that hive is gone. It's like, for some odd reason, it is destroyed, and it's like, what? Huh? I don't fucking know. I don't know why he discarded the Mojave Hive, but actually I do know why. Because if she went back to the Mojave Hive, recovered her losses, got her powers back, and got all the T-virus and antibodies and all that, blah, 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 she would be able to hunt Wesker down, take him out, and then inoculate Claire Redfield and the rest, and suddenly make a little society in Alaska with survivors who are now immune to the T-virus, and we just wait out the zombies freezing in the cold and all that crap. But instead of being able to do that, we have to make more sequels. So Alice goes to Alaska to find Claire and the others and realizes that there is a whole city of abandoned aircraft. Some of them that look many years old, which brings me into questioning how much time has passed since all of this crap. Alice doesn't look too much older than she is. Maybe 10 years. Maybe 10 years have passed. I don't know. But and how come Alaska is full of vegetation? Maybe that's because there's no infection and all that crap. Maybe they were just so dumb that they thought that the whole planet withered and died because they were just riding around the Mojave when they could have just went north out of the Mojave and realized there's vegetation. They discarded that plotline. The planet's green again. There's no withering and dying anymore. There's vegetation again. So, we are in the vegetation of Alaska. And then she's like, oh no, all the survivors are gone. But then there's a wild Claire Redfield, and she has a little thingamajiggy on her chest because remember that from Resident Evil 5? So she gets that thing off Claire, and Claire is now amnesiac. She is now amnesiac. And then Alice and Claire head back south for the winter, and they're going down along the western seaboard, and then they reach Los Angeles. And Los Angeles looks exactly the same as it did before the infection. On fire and in ruins. I kid. It's on fire. It's on fire. Why is it on fire? It's like you just arrived weeks after the virus broke out here. But apparently many years have passed. So why is the city still on fire? These fires should have burned out long ago. So They're flying through Los Angeles. It ruins and on fire and full of zombies. And they pass by the prison, and there's some survivors there. They have an SOS sign on the roof of the prison, and Alice is like, oh, we gotta go down there. There's some people down there. And I'm like, okay, let's go to the prison. Let's go. And they land, they meet Luther West and some other dude. They meet some dumb producer dude, because of course they're in LA. We have to find a pompous producer dude and his little sidekick dude. And the producer dude's name is Bennett. And Bennett is the epitome of the selfish, self-serving civilian. They care only about themselves. They care only about what they want. They don't care about anybody else in the world. These are the people who would become bandits in a post-apocalyptic society, because they are so selfish to the point that they don't realize that there are other people in the world, and that they might need those other people to survive. Bennett, at least, is smart enough to realize that there are other people in the world, and he can use them to survive. For example, he doesn't know how to cook, so he could use somebody who knows how to cook to eat. That's how self-serving and selfish Bennett is. And those types of people are terrible people. They are. I myself am a little bit selfish, but I can at least accept that in a post-apocalyptic society, maybe we might have to work together to do stuff, and maybe we shouldn't be so brash and murderous to our fellow survivors, because maybe we can work together to maybe not die. So, we meet the survivors of the prison. Luther West is the only memorable character that we've met so far. Everybody else looks like they're going to die soon, because we don't spend any time on them. Except for Bennett. Because we'll get to him in a minute. So this is where the film starts to feel like a Dawn of the Dead film. Because in Dawn of the Dead, we have a group of survivors holding up in a mall, and they have to learn to get along, and all sorts of wacky hijinks happens as they're getting along, as the zombies are trying to break into the mall, and then they have to find a way to get out of the mall, to get to the pier, to take a boat, to go somewhere else. That's basically what's happening here. They're in the prison, and the zombies are trying to get in. They have to figure out a way to get to the pier, to get to the boat, to get out, and go to a safer place that's not exactly safe. Which is basically what Dawn of the Dead was. The remake, especially. I think Paul W.S. Anderson realized that George Romero was actually a really good filmmaker, and had really good ideas, and that maybe he should have been the one to work on these films instead of him, but I digress. He might not. He might have passed by then, I think. I don't know. So, we have Dawn of the Dead 2.0 here, Resident Evil Afterlife. We have to have these characters with wacky hijinks and staying alive in the prison. And it's actually really cool, because we have this giant Axeman with all this fucking crap sticking out of his head, and it's like, what the hell is this thing? Where the crap did he come from? Did the Umbrella Corporation make this guy and just let him loose in the world? As a science experiment? Who knows? Who fucking knows? So, as they're trying to survive, they go down to the basement and they find somebody in prison. This is Chris Redfield, who recognizes his sister Claire, but Claire has amnesia, conveniently, so she cannot validate who Chris is. And Chris is played by the guy from Prison Break, Wentworth Miller. And of course, he's played by the guy from Prison Break, because why wouldn't he be? This is a prison, and they need to have a prison break, and the only person you could get for a prison break is Wentworth Miller to have a prison break, because, of course, they couldn't get somebody else, like maybe Channing Tatum, who looks more like a Chris Redfield with all of his muscle-bound thugness and all that crap. No, we gotta use Wentworth Miller. Okay, alright, let's use Wentworth Miller. He's fine. He really is. He looks the part. He looks like Chris minus all of the muscles. But I liked him. And since I liked him, he's probably not going to be in the sequel. Hint, hint. So, They eventually let Chris out when half of the cast start dying from the zombies, and they're getting desperate. They have to figure out how to get out, when Chris seems to know a way to get out, because he's been here a while. So, Chris has a plan. Bennett fucks up that plan. He shoots one of the survivors. I think his name is Angel. Angel looks like one of those Federale soldier-type characters, and, well, whatever. Bennett kills him, and he's like, "We are gonna take the plane to get out of here, to get to that boat." And then his little sidekick fellow goes like, "But what about the others?" And Bennett goes like, "Fuck the others!" Because he's a self-serving asshole. So Bennett steals the plane, and he flies away. And Chris is like, "Well, shit, what do we do now?" Well, they still go to get the guns. They still get all the guns, and Alice and Claire Redfield end up fighting the Axeman in the bathroom with all the showers and shit. Because now zombies are starting to get mutating, and there's Plaga zombies, despite, not establishing that there's Plagas yet. I don't know. I don't fucking know. At this point, it's just dumb schlock action, and I like dumb schlock action, but I can always pick apart how dumb it is. I can. So the Axeman fight is really entertaining, though. It's really entertaining, it's really dumb, but it is really cool with the slow motion of them throwing the axe, and you could feel the weight behind that axe. You could feel the weight of that axe when it just slices the bathroom stalls apart. It just crushes anything it touches. And when Alice and characters dive to dodge the axe swing, you could feel how close of a dodge that was, and that thing could have taken them in half. You could feel that type of desperation. And Alice doesn't have her superpowers anymore. She's just a badass ass kicker again. But of course, she's more of a badass ass kicker than Claire Redfield and Chris Redfield. Of course she is. Because, of course she is. So, they beat the Axeman, and then they have to get out of the prison through the sewer system. The same way the mutant zombies got in. So, the survivors take the sewer systems. Chris Redfield, Claire Redfield, their main characters, they're from the games, so of course they survive. Luther West doesn't make it. He doesn't make it. At least we think he doesn't make it. Alice makes it. So the three characters make their way to the boat to chase down Bennett and find the signal from the boat. That's the Arcadia signal from Alaska. The Arcadia is on the boat now, and they're like, "Oh, we got to get the ship. That's where they're going. It's a boat, actually." So they make their way to the Arcadia, and they find that the Arcadia is not actually what they thought it was. It was actually an umbrella facility, and they check the ship's log, and they find that the crew all abandoned ship shortly after something happened. I'm glad they had that scene, honestly. I'm glad that Chris read that from the ship's log, because if he didn't do that, what happens next is what would have made me blink a lot in questions of going like, what the So Chris reads that from the ship log just to tell us what's going to happen next. So we make our way downstairs, and we find that all of the survivors, about 2,000 survivors, are being held in cryostasis. Because of course they are. They're going to be experimented on and fed on. And who's going to be eating the people? Well, in the next room, Alice, Chris, and Claire meet Albert Wesker. He survived the Tokyo facility helicopter crash, and now he has superpowers. Because remember when he had superpowers in Resident Evil 5? So when Alice gets to fight the zombie dogs, Wesker faces off against Chris and Claire. And this entire scene of Chris and Claire versus Albert Wesker is basically a shot-for-shot remake of Chris versus Albert Wesker in Resident Evil 5. They just redid that entire thing. And I loved it. I loved it. Because at least Chris and Claire got to do something. Finally, Chris got to do something in this entire franchise that has been starved of Chris Redfield and Leon Kennedy for years. Finally, we get to see Chris do something. And then Albert beats them both, and they get thrown into cryo tubes, and they fall down. And then Alice has to beat Wesker, and then she releases Chris and Claire. And then they release everybody else. And Kmart's here, because of course, she's here. They release everybody. Everybody gets released, and all the survivors, and everything looks happy. Everything looks happy and hunky and dory. Albert Wesker has been defeated. And everything looks cool. And then suddenly, on the horizon of the Arcadia, there is an army of helicopters. Umbrella has come to strike again. And who's leading this assault? It's Jill Valentine. She's in the same outfit that she was wearing in Resident Evil 5. Remember that? They didn't establish that she got picked up. They didn't establish that she got kidnapped. If she got kidnapped, did Abigail Ashford get kidnapped? What the fuck is happening? I don't fucking know! But that is Resident Evil Afterlife in a nutshell. And it is full, from start to finish, of the dumbest schlock that you could ever fill your fucking movie with. There's an amazing Tokyo sequence. There's Albert Wesker is hammy as fucking, very entertaining. Chris is okay in that fight. Claire finally got to show up that she was not useless for once. And we got the Axeman fight. The music was great. Luther West was entertaining. Bennett was a self-serving asshole, but at least we had some form of villain here. And then, oh yeah, Bennett's on the ship and then he dies. I forgot to tell you that, but, yeah, he makes it to the ship and then he gets killed. Because of course he does. He's just a fucker that goes like, I just wanted to go home. Motherfucker. Do you not realize this is a zombie apocalypse? Well, fix it! And you fucking... See, that's the type of self-serving character that Bennett was. Bennett looks around and he sees that the world is in chaos, and he goes like, all you survivors need to get off your ass and fix this apocalypse so that I can go home and be a producer again. That's how selfish Bennett was. He is so in his own little world that he does not even care that the world is in chaos. He just says, well, you need to unchaos yourself so that I can go back to being a rich producer man. Because he is so far gone. His death was very satisfying. I was so satisfied with his death, but... Man, this film is amazing. And so Albert Wesker does get up because he has regenerative factors, and he was going to purge the ship, and he was going to escape, right? So he escapes on the helicopter again, but Alice got smart. She put the self-destruct device on the helicopter that Albert Wesker was going to pick to escape on. Because of course she did. She picked the right one, because there's a bunch of them in that hangar. But she picked the one that Albert Wesker was going to pick. And the helicopter that Wesker's on explodes. He's fine. So, then we probably think, since the film ends with Jill Valentine under mind control or whatever, and a bunch of Umbrella ships, airships, whatever, flying towards the Arcadia ship. We think, since the film ends on that, we're probably going to get a sequel. And we did. This film was very entertaining, and it probably entertained plenty of other people. Usually the Michael Bay crowd, they probably entertain those people. I don't know. I like Michael Bay movies, but not because I think they're good. I just think they're entertainingly bad. The first 2, 3 Transformers films, all 5 actually had something good in it. They're very dumb. They're very entertaining at the same time. And that's what this film was. This felt like another one of those Michael Bay / Matrix sequel films. And since I liked both the Michael Bay Transformers movies and the Matrix sequels, I can understand they're bad films in a lot of ways, but I like them. I love them. They're so entertainingly bad. They're so entertaining. If they're entertaining, they succeed. And this film was entertaining, and it succeeded in entertaining me practically from start to finish. So that's why I like this one the most out of all of the rest. Because they did not screw too much with the named characters from the games. Chris was mildly competent. Claire was mildly competent. Wesker was very entertaining. Jill Valentine looks like she looks in the game. Because remember that? But at least she looked mildly competent for the split second that we saw her. Everything from the games felt mildly competent. And since everything was mildly competent, it made for an entertaining, not as insulting film. You just have to turn your brain off and realize that there's so much wrong with this film that it falls apart before it can even begin. Los Angeles is on fire, years after the virus outbreak. Survivors have survived in the prison for so long. How long have they been there? We don't know. How much time has passed since Raccoon City? We don't know. Is the planet still withered and dying? We don't know. If Jill is alive, where's Abigail Ashford? We don't know. Where's the Mojave Hive? Is it still functional? We don't know. And Paul doesn't want you to ask any of those questions, because those plot points are irrelevant. They're irrelevant. The only thing relevant is what's on screen. And if anything happened in the previous film that isn't happening right now, it's irrelevant now. So, everything that I've just asked is irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It's not important to the movie right now. Because if you think about those things, this film falls apart. Resident Evil Extinction falls apart. Resident Evil Apocalypse doesn't really fall apart. You could probably explain away that due to just pure character stupidity. You could justify the Apocalypse film, but can you justify Extinction, and then from Extinction to Afterlife? But I love this film. The next one I also like, but not as much, because they do a lot of the same things they did in Afterlife in Retribution. And we're probably going to talk about that some other time. This has been the Resident Evil Films Audiocast Part 4, signing off. And remember, be imaginative.